I love that in a life that I got to live before I knew them, my priorities were different.
She's danced through decades of fame, cried through chaos, and laughed in the face of heartbreak, but what happened recently left everyone speechless. Drew Barrymore, the unshakable darling of daytime television and Hollywood's forever comeback queen, suddenly went off script. No lights. No cue cards. Just raw emotion, a shaky voice, and a moment so unexpected, it left the internet reeling. After building an empire on authenticity, could this teary breakdown be the crack in the crown or something more revealing? What could possibly bring a woman who survived child stardom, addiction, and public scrutiny to the edge on live television? Something happened behind those studio walls, and it is not what you think. Drew Barrymore did not just enter the entertainment industry, she was born into its very bloodstream. As the great-granddaughter of stage legends, the granddaughter of screen icon John Barrymore, and the goddaughter of Steven Spielberg and Sophia Loren, Drew's Hollywood lineage was storied and inescapable. Her first name, Drew, came from her paternal great-grandmother Georgie Drew, and her middle name, Blythe, from her great-grandfather's original surname. From her earliest moments, Drew was surrounded by legacy, but not always by stability. Her father, actor John Drew Barrymore, struggled with addiction and was mostly absent, and her mother, Jade, had her own ambitions in the industry, pushing Drew into the spotlight before she could even talk. At just 11 months old, Drew landed her first role in a dog food commercial, and by age 5, she was acting in feature films. Her breakout came in 1982 with E.T. the Extraterrestrial, where she played the lovable Gertie, a performance so magnetic that it made her a household name overnight. But while most kids her age were navigating kindergarten, Drew was navigating Hollywood. At age 7, she became the youngest ever host of Saturday Night Live and was already a red carpet regular. She described the Saturday Night Live experience as surprisingly inclusive, even as a child. Nobody treated me like a kid there. It was clear she had the charm and charisma for fame, but not yet the tools to handle it. Few havens could be found within a home. Drew's parents divorced when she was 9, and she dodged homelessness between houses in West Hollywood and Sherman Oaks. Emotional neglect, instability, and the lack of healthy role models in early memoirs about her life bear stark witness to her existence. By the time her fame burgeoned, so did the media's interest in her increasingly chaotic private life. She had become a regular fixture in Hollywood nightclubs, even the infamous Studio 54, before puberty turned on. Instead of being protected from the darker sides of the industry, Drew faced it. Photographed often, for one thing, in adult situations, dressed way too far beyond her years, socializing with older stars, and with adult weight pressures. Early in her adolescence, this sort of unnatural upbringing had begun to take its toll. At the tender age of 13, Drew entered rehab, only to be later put in a mental ward after surviving an attempt to take her own life. This celebrity kid was not even trying to run from her past, rather, she faced it. After a short stabilizing stay at the domicile of musician David Crosby and his wife, who really revealed to her what sober structured living could be, Drew took a courageous move. She petitioned the court for emancipation from her parents at age 14. With that, she moved into her own apartment and took control of her life. Her emancipation was not rebellion. It was survival. Drew Barrymore grew into a subject of study on fame's dangers in her very early years. But through all of it, she emerged with a story of survival rather than tragedy. The willingness to embrace the past, not erase it, becomes the root of her evolution. That little girl who, once upon a time, embodied the dangers of child stardom now morphs into an actress, producer, businesswoman, and mother. And so, she told the world that resilience is not born. It is built. Surviving a stolen childhood was only the beginning. Drew's real battle came after the cameras stopped rolling when the addiction took center stage in a life already shaped by chaos. Drew Barrymore's story of addiction is inseparable from her turbulent upbringing. By the age of 9, when most children are still navigating playground dynamics and school routines, Barrymore was already immersed in the nightlife of Studio 54, brought there by her own mother. Surrounded by adults and with unchecked access to substances, Drew was introduced to alcohol and quickly spiraled into substance use, experimenting with cannabis and hard substances by age 12. Her early fame after E.T. the Extraterrestrial masked a reality far removed from the glitz of Hollywood. Instead of basking in childhood wonder, she was navigating an adult world with no safety net. Her escalating behavior and addiction soon caught up with her career. At only 12, Barrymore was blacklisted in Hollywood, a dramatic fall from grace for someone who had once been hailed as America's darling. At 13, her mother had her committed to a rehabilitation facility where she remained for 18 months. It was during this time that Drew sought emancipation from her parents, a legal move that granted her independence at just 14 years old. This decision, while drastic, was a declaration of self-preservation. She understood that if she was to survive, let alone thrive, she had to remove herself from the toxic environment that had nearly consumed her. As a consequence of being a teenager who battled with substance abuse, Barrymore has continued to wage a lifelong war in silence against alcohol. After battling hard and achieving sobriety for several years, she built a successful career and then had an emotional setback in 2016. Faced with this emotional hurdle, Barrymore resorted to alcohol, thus eroding friendships and even losing her therapist, who decided to stop the therapy sessions, citing the relapse as the reason. In a characteristically Barrymore touch, healing defeated self-destruction. In 2021, she openly declared that she had been sober from alcohol for over 2 years. She did not publicize this sobriety as a performance but as a quiet, confident journey, a journey that she preferred to keep private until she was ready. Deeply rooted in commitment towards becoming the best version of herself for her daughters Olive and Frankie, her recovery became the source of strength in breaking entire generational cycles and modeling strength in vulnerability. The Drew Barrymore Show served as an emotional outlet as well as the creative engine through which she steered life, focus, and a renewed sense of purpose for herself. This is the story of a person who has persevered and reinvented themselves. To Barrymore, recovery does not always mean a perfect arc but an evolving one that is filled with setbacks, hard truths, and self-forgiveness along the way. Today, she leads a substance and alcohol-free life, finding its meaning in self-awareness and gratitude. What Barrymore's journey teaches is how not to make addiction a moral failing but a very human response to pain that through courage, compassion, and support can heal. As her friend Cameron Diaz put it, "You can't even comprehend how hard it was to be her as a child," and then she shot out the other end with the ability to save herself. That ability not to avoid struggle, but to rise from it defines Drew Barrymore more than any movie ever could. After surviving the chaos of her youth, Drew Barrymore was not content with just making a comeback. She set out to reshape Hollywood on her own terms. In the mid-90s, she made a bold move by co-founding Flower Films, a production company that would become the backbone of her creative resurgence. What followed was a string of unexpected hits that proved Drew was more than a former child star. She was a sharp businesswoman with a deep understanding of what audiences craved. Her signature mix of quirky charm and emotional authenticity helped turn romantic comedies like The Wedding Singer and Never Been Kissed into modern classics. But Drew never stuck to just one lane. She dipped into thrillers, dramas, and indie films, taking risks others would not. When she helped bring Donnie Darko to life, a strange cerebral cult hit that baffled studios, she not only financed it but also gave it credibility by appearing in it. Her instincts paid off again with Charlie's Angels, where she produced and starred alongside Cameron Diaz and Lucy Liu, flipping the script on what female-led action movies could look like. Audiences showed up in droves, and Flower Films cemented its place in Hollywood as more than just a vanity project. Drew's versatility took her behind the camera. In 2009, she made her transition to directing with Whip It, a roller derby dramedy echoing her own coming-of-age chaos, gritty, rebellious, and ultimately empowering. In the meantime, she won acclaim for Grey Gardens, giving proof of her talent for digging deep with layered characters and bringing their complexities to life. From falling in love in a comedy like 50 First Dates, giving voice to an animated dog in Beverly Hills Chihuahua, to transforming into a flesh-eating suburban zombie in Netflix's Santa Clarita Diet, one thing was clear: Drew Barrymore had range and was willing to use it. The next scene that opened up before Drew was one of the unexpected kind. In 2020, Drew premiered The Drew Barrymore Show, a daytime talk show that felt more like a hug than a Hollywood production. Drew created a space that was both lighthearted and deeply human with her signature humor, honesty, and empathy. Whether Drew interviewed A-list celebrities or embraced everyday heroes, she brought her full self, flaws and feelings included, to daytime TV. In an ocean where authenticity was the nectar, she served it to us daily, not as a character but as herself. And botched up just like every other chapter before, this one, she did it her way. Drew Barrymore's love life has played out like one of her own romantic comedies, messy, emotional, and unforgettable. From teenage flings to spontaneous weddings, her relationships were often tabloid gold. At just 14, she dated fellow teen star Corey Feldman, kicking off a string of young Hollywood romances. By 16, she was engaged to Leland Hayward III, only to break it off and later get engaged again to Jamie Walters. Tattoos were exchanged, but so were breakups, setting the tone for a love life that was anything but boring. Her first marriage came at age 19 to bar owner Jeremy Thomas after a whirlwind 6-week romance. It lasted just 19 days. Drew later confessed she realized it was a mistake on her wedding day. Not one to stay single for long, she entered into high-profile relationships with rocker Eric Erlandson and actor Luke Wilson. The late 90s saw Drew navigating love on her own terms, sometimes publicly, sometimes painfully. In 2001, the rather punk comedian married Tom Green, meeting him while creating Charlie's Angels. This marriage was marked with lots of drama, including a house fire and Green's fight with cancer, and personally, they were able to manage very well within a year since they divorced. 2 decades later, they met again on her talk show, and it was all warm and funny again. Later, she had an especially meaningful 5-year relationship with the Strokes drummer Fabrizio Moretti, an experience she described as one of the most significant in her life. Her third and longest marriage was with an art consultant, Will Kopelman. The couple tied the knot in 2012, had 2 daughters, and divorced in 2016. Barrymore and Kopelman were opposites in many ways, but she has spoken of him with great respect and fondness, especially with regard to his robust family values. Since the divorce, she kept most of her dating life private, until recently. In fact, inspired by all the attention around Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, Barrymore even confessed that she has been dating someone from the exclusive app Raya for 3 years now. Somehow, she now seems to be accepting love in her own stuffy way, as she has come all this while, embracing her own twist on loving, a little less public, a bit more peaceful. In the years following her divorce from art consultant Will Kopelman in 2016, Drew Barrymore has opened up about the emotional toll it took on her and her family. Nearly a decade later, she described the breakup as a period of intense grief, calling it heavy, painful, and sad. In a candid interview with AARP the magazine, Drew shared how her dream of a perfect family had crumbled. Despite growing up quickly as a child star, she admitted she suddenly did not know how to feel or move forward, saying, "My dream family was falling apart and I did not know how to put one foot in front of the other." What made the divorce even harder for Drew was the absence of a scandal, no single event to blame. "There was no scandal," she told People in 2022. "Nothing went wrong, which makes it harder and more confusing." Without a clear villain or breaking point, Drew was left to face the quiet ache of a dream that simply did not work out. A friend's words stuck with her: "Divorce is the death of a dream." That sense of loss haunted her, but she found strength in the one thing that grounded her: her daughters, Olive and Frankie. In a bid to be the best possible mother, Drew was determined to place her career in the back seat. Long working hours at film sets held little relevance if it meant spending less time with her children. "I was not going to do that," she shared. For someone who emancipated herself from her own parents at 14, being present and emotionally available for her children was a priority. She accepted the true nature of modern-day parenting, which she said, "You are never not together if you have children," on the Drew Barrymore show regarding her separation from Will, but remaining co-parents. Drew became okay with being single. In keeping with Drew's style, she approached it humorously, and in a recent TikTok video noted, "Last December I was single. This December I'm still single. Hope that helps." While the wounds of her divorce run deep, Drew has made a point of discussing it, another testament to her authenticity, and turning heartbreak into something relatable, real, and quietly resilient. Just as Drew began rebuilding her personal life with grace, a professional decision thrust her into one of the most polarizing controversies of her career. In the fall of 2023, Drew Barrymore, once celebrated as America's sweetheart and a symbol of resilience, found herself caught in the crosshairs of controversy. As Hollywood came to a halt during the Joint Writers Guild of America and SAG-AFTRA strikes, Barrymore made the contentious decision to bring the Drew Barrymore Show back into production. Although she claimed the show would not promote struck content and would remain in compliance with union regulations, her return was viewed by many as a breach of solidarity. The backlash was immediate and intense, casting a shadow over her otherwise inspiring public image. Barrymore justified her choice by pointing to the needs of her staff. She explained that the show, which had originally launched during the uncertainty of the pandemic, was built on the principle of showing up for people in hard times. Still, industry peers and union supporters saw her move as undermining a labor movement that depended on unity. When she was removed as host of the National Book Awards, it signaled just how seriously the creative community took the infraction. Suddenly, Barrymore was no longer seen as a beacon of empathy but as someone standing on the wrong side of a critical fight. Social media erupted in fury. Barrymore was condemned for scabbing and for acting tone-deaf on channels like Instagram, TikTok, and X, formerly Twitter. Her proclamation, "I own this choice," which was touted as an admission of accountability, went awry, serving up viral fodder as an anti-Barrymore chorus. Some of the fans, who saw in her some traces of vulnerability and lowness, expressed disappointment. It is said to have thrown into sharper relief the tightrope on which public figures walk between their personal values and their professional choices, especially when they are known for their emotional transparency. Just a day ahead of the season premiere, Barrymore did the unthinkable. She changed the original plan and, in a statement, acknowledged the backlash. She added that production would stop until the strike was over. "I have listened to everyone." Many viewed that as a redemptive step. She could yet be Drew, reflective and humble. Reputation-wise, however, the same damage would remain. It was not just about the show, it was about winning her audience back, her peers as well. This career episode marked a turning point for Barrymore. Given the heritage of reinvention and frankness, the fallout from the strike has an entirely different kind of scrutiny. It showed what complex leaderships would have to be in this increasingly age of public accountability, yet even the best chips can misfire when they are out of alignment with a larger movement. In trying to protect her show's family, she momentarily intended to step out of sync with the larger one, and that conflict would make the world see Drew Barrymore differently. When Drew Barrymore posted a tearful 3-minute video on Instagram on September 15, 2023, it was not just an apology, it was a reckoning. Sitting alone in what appeared to be her living room, with no polished PR team behind her, Drew spoke directly to the camera, her voice trembling and eyes swollen. "I believe there is nothing I can do or say in this moment to make it okay," she began. The video was not captioned. The setting was intimate, the tone raw. For a woman known for her emotional candor, this was perhaps her most vulnerable moment yet. In the video, Barrymore explained that she did not want to hide behind public relations spin. "I take full responsibility for my actions," she said, addressing both the entertainment community and her audience. She repeatedly apologized to writers and unions, acknowledging that her decision had caused pain. "It is not who I am," she insisted, her voice breaking as she struggled through the words. It was a plea not just for forgiveness but for understanding. She was not trying to excuse her actions, only to explain the heart behind them. Despite her sincerity, the video quickly became polarizing. Some viewers saw a woman torn between her sense of duty to her team and her loyalty to the industry that raised her. Others dismissed the apology as performative, pointing out that Drew still had the power to halt production, as other hosts had done in support of the strike. One particularly pointed comment came from actress Deborah Messing, who urged Barrymore to reconsider her decision and reminded her of the broader impact on union members beyond her show. Well-intentioned as an attempt at healing, the apology instead sent the backlash into overdrive. The apology tear was dissected and memed, mocked and mourned. To add insult to injury, the apology video was deleted almost immediately after it was posted, prompting many to question whether this had been a genuine attempt to build bridges or just something she wanted to erase. To those people whose brand is based on rejection and empathy, it felt like a stab in the back. Even the old-school loyalists were left pondering, trying to fathom in their minds how to reconcile that with her current actions. Yet this thing feels human. It reminds everybody that fame does not insulate you from having to make some really tough calls or from reckoning with the fallout therein. The tearful apologies may not have salvaged the moment, but they told a truth many have walked with, that at times, with all the right intentions, you still flunk it. Drew crying, admitting her faults, and showing the messy side of growth offered a rare glimpse of public figures grappling with personal failure. It was not PR, it was a mirror held to her soul and ours. In the lead-up to Drew Barrymore's decision to resume the Drew Barrymore Show during the 2023 Writers Guild of America WGA strike, industry insiders had growing concerns about the potential repercussions. The WGA had made it clear that any production continuing during the strike would be viewed as undermining their efforts. Despite this, Barrymore announced the show's return, asserting compliance with union rules by not promoting struck work. However, many within the industry felt this move was ill-advised and anticipated significant backlash. The WGA had an immediate and firm reaction against Barrymore's show and the damaging precedent it set. The Guild condemned the decision, saying that any production with writing done during the strike was unacceptable. Chelsea White, co-head writer of the Drew Barrymore Show, publicly criticized the decision and added dissenting voices internally, which brings up union solidarity issues. This internal opposition revealed the intense concern among industry members about a potential dilution in the collective bargaining power. Barrymore's decision also gave other daytime talk shows the jitters. The Jennifer Hudson Show and The Talk were first going to return to work without their WGA writers. But seeing Barbara, both shows further reversed their decision and delayed their return until after the strike. It can be said that the incident illustrates how cautious the industry was in their own actions concerning Barrymore's fiasco. Insiders say this was a cautionary tale on the complicated nature of labor negotiations and production decision-making. It showed that, as a practical matter, to keep the peace, industry standards must remain aligned with union expectations. Barrymore's tale subsequently became the centerpiece of talk about the ethics compliance fallout stemming from strike behavior in the industry. Drew Barrymore has often been celebrated as a feminist figure in Hollywood thanks to her roles in empowering films like Charlie's Angels, her leadership at Flower Films, and her vulnerability both on and off screen. As a woman who survived a troubled childhood and rose to become a successful producer and talk show host, many saw her as the embodiment of female resilience. Her authenticity, refusal to conform to unrealistic beauty standards, and vocal support for self-acceptance made her a relatable icon for a generation of women navigating their own journeys toward empowerment. However, Drew's relationship with feminism has always been a little complicated. In a 2019 Glamour UK interview, she admitted she was once scared of feminism because of what she perceived as all the male bashing. She expressed hesitation about some modern women's movements, saying she did not find visceral anger to be empowering and that she wanted her daughters to know their worth without wanting to take down the male race. While she framed this as a call for balance and inclusion, critics argued that it revealed a misunderstanding of feminism's core values, particularly its fight for equality, not domination. The same underlying tension flared up again in 2023 when Barrymore announced that she was going to resume her show during the Writers' Guild strike. To many old supporters, particularly the feminist and creative communities, this felt like a betrayal. Writers, many of them women, were asking for decent pay and acknowledgement. Barrymore's move forward without them was considered as undermining the whole solidarity she once seemed to stand for. Feminist commentators who had praised her for long questioned her commitment to the movement, implying that her action prioritized corporate optics over collective advocacy. And yet again, such a moment sparked conversations wider than the expectation of using public figures, women more so, as transcendental. Barrymore never even tried to foist claims that she was a political voice or a perfect feminist, had an imperfect understanding of politics, or was not quite up to par with feminists. In honesty, then, she has lived with an emotional experience called life, motherhood, trauma, or celebrity. Indeed, for many, that openness has secured their affinity for her. She has done damage to her credibility with the error, but then it was also a reminder that icons are human. While some who offer her accountability include fans and activists, others argue that growth and grace must also form part of the feminist ethos. Whether Drew reclaims her place in the movement or not, her story illustrates just how nuanced and personal feminism can be. From public fallout to personal freedom, Drew's next chapter proves that even after the storm, there is still space to shine in your truest light. At 50, Drew Barrymore has entered what she proudly calls the most authentic chapter of her life. After decades in the relentless glare of Hollywood's spotlight, from precocious child star to romantic comedy royalty, she now radiates a different kind of energy, one rooted not in performance but in presence. But this clarity did not come easy. Drew recently opened up on the Drew Barrymore Show about the emotional aftermath of her divorce from Will Kopelman, calling its impact on her family devastating. Drew admitted it took a long time to recover from not raising her children in a traditional family dynamic. Drew, who experienced a famously chaotic childhood, confessed that she had sworn to give her daughters the stable upbringing she herself never had. All the kids at school would go into the office to call their parents when they were sick and she could never get a hold of anybody, she shared with guest Moon Zappa. She said she was so jealous of those kids who would call and be like, "Mom, Dad, come pick me up." She would just sit there and wonder what that was like. Despite the heartbreak, she and Kopelman remained united in their parenting. At the time of their separation, they said their children are their universe and they look forward to living the rest of their lives with them as the first priority. With those days behind her as she collects awards or signs studio deals, Drew is now completely into motherhood, wellness, and the Drew Barrymore Show, which these days feels more like a communal hug than a highly polished production. Whether she is twirling in bright heels or comforting a teary audience member, Drew is that rare someone who has nothing to prove anymore and only loves to give. Goodbye to red carpet rituals and headline-hungry antics. She has come to reinvent her public self through connection. Her talk show place became a refuge for all self-doubt, perimenopause, and parenting conversations steeped in warmth, wit, and her trademark brutal honesty. Here, it is not margins but the story, the breaks in spontaneity, those instances of laughter, exposure, and even a little bit of chaos. That calm would have terrified her another time in life. Perfection no longer threatens her, and so Drew savors what she calls real middle-aged woman stuff, dancing backstage, cooking for friends, or donning sweatpants to drop the kids at school. She is not just getting older, she is coming into her own. But this is not reinvention. It is reclamation. Drew thinks that every wild chapter and mistake carved out the way to this moment. Turning 50, for her, is not an end, but the B-side of the record, the soulful gritty tracks where real life plays. Here, at last, Drew Barrymore has found her groove, and it is built on peace, purpose, and becoming a life that finally feels like her own. Thanks for watching. If you felt anything during this video, shock, surprise, maybe even a little heartbreak, drop a like and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button for more stories that go beyond the headlines. And hey, do not go just yet, click the next video on your screen for even more behind-the-scenes Hollywood moments. See you there.